Good morning, ladies. It is Thursday, April the 16th, and today is our last day of notes. This is all the content I have for you, and so the rest of our time will be spent reviewing and taking a chapter test, and then reviewing and taking a final. So that's where we are. So today's a big day. I probably should have had noisemakers, but I did not. And so it's a very exciting day. So today what we want to do is we want to finish off statistics. And so we did graphs, and from what I looked at, the majority of you guys did really good on your graphs. So that's exciting. So we want to move to section 4, and what section 4 is measures of center and variation. Now, measures of center. Okay, well, first of all, let's talk about where this is at. So it doesn't mean that pre-grade 3 you're out of this. Pre-grade 3 is basically doing the more data collecting portion. So categorizing things and reading graphs that you're working up to, then taking those data points and then using them in grade 3 through grade 8. Okay, so 3 through 5, this is where if you're looking at 3 through 5, you will teach statistics. And so you will do mean, median, mode, those kind of things. So if that's your grade, then this is something you will be teaching. You're comparing different representations of the same data to see which one shows the data the best. Okay, and then if you're doing 6 through 8, so middle school, that's where you'll get into more of interpreting the center and the spread, and then looking more into the variation. Okay, so the majority of you guys are not going that direction. We are just going to look at the measures of central tendency, but know that in the rest of your notes are the information on how to find variation. So if you are going into those middle school grades, then definitely you have that information. Okay, so let's look at some definitions. And again, this is more on a statistics side. So data is just observations that have been collected. So how many cars, what color are your eyes, those kind of things, collecting data. Statistics, we've talked about, is the collection method of planning the experiment, obtaining data, organizing it, summarizing it, interpreting, drawing conclusions, all those things. Okay, population. So there's two different camps here. There's population, and what population is it's the complete collection of all elements. Okay, the complete collection of all elements. And then the second is a sample, and a sample is a sub-collection of elements. So you can't say that you polled the entire population of the world. You can only poll a sample of the world. So you can kind of think about that. And then a census, right now we're doing our census, so here's a plug. Make sure you complete your census. It doesn't take very long. You can do it online. Just make sure you complete your U.S. Census. So it helps your county and your city get funding from federal and state. So make sure you do that. Okay, and then parameters. Parameters are what we're looking at, the numerical measures describing the characteristics of a population. So we'll look at mean. They usually, again, use the Greek letters, but and then we won't look at variance, but we'll for sure look at mean. And then the statistic, a numerical measurement describing a characteristics of a sample. So parameter is of the population. Sorry, what I'm doing. And the statistic is the sample. So that's what we're finding, is we're finding the statistic of a sample. Okay, so 3 phases of statistics: collect it, analyze it, and interpret it. Okay, so definitely in your classroom you will collect data. Okay, you'll collect things. You'll make charts of eye color, any of those kind of things. Collecting data is things that you would do in your classroom. Analyzing data, again, you would make a chart, so that's considered analyzing. And then your students reading graphs is technically interpreting results. Now, again, analyzing data, we can also look at the measures of central tendency, which is our averages. And that's what we're going to focus on today. Okay, so in characteristics of data, we are just going to focus on the center, okay? But know that there are also variations. There's distributions, and that's where the bell-shaped curve comes into play. Most of the time with grading, the average should be, all of your grades should clump somewhere in that 70 range. You want there to be low points and high points, but you want your data to be in a bell-shaped curve. So if the top of your bell is off to the right, then that means your test was too easy. If everybody failed it, that means you need to reevaluate it. So outliers, again, we talked about outliers before when we were doing graphs, and those are ones that aren't with the rest of the data. They tend to skew things quite a bit. Okay, so what we want to focus on today is central tendency, and they describe the whole distribution of data with one value, okay? And the three that we're going to look at is mean, median, and mode. Mean, median, and mode, okay? You also can find mid-range, weighted means. We will talk about weighted means because that's how you find GPA, okay? An A is worth 4 points, a B is worth 3 points, those kind of things. So that's how we will figure GPA. And then a trimmed mean is when you take out outliers and you only find the mean of a certain portion, okay, of the data. Okay, so to compute the means, we have been finding means or averages, okay, on several things throughout our lives. So finding mean is something you are familiar with. So finding an average. So to find the mean, and they're using chickenpox ages right here, okay, and there's 11 children. So to find the mean, you want to sum the ages and then divide by the number of cases. So when you sum them, you get 66, and then when you divide by 11, your average or your mean age to get chickenpox is 6 years old. And as you notice, some people will get them at 2, some people will get them at 10, but again, your average is somewhere in the middle, okay, the middle of your data, and about 6 years old. Okay. So that's how you find your mean. So again, this is the official definition of computing a mean, okay, and what it means is your X values would be your scores or your data points or your ages, and then N is the number of those that you have. So the number of X values that you have. So you add them up and then divide by the number of those values that you have. And it's denoted by X bar. Okay, that's the definition of a mean. Okay, so you can think about a mean as a balance point. Okay, we know mean is an average, so we have to think about it as a balance point going on here. Half the scores are on one side, half the scores on the other side. Okay, so here's an example to find the mean. I'm touching my face. So you're given scores, test scores. This was not this year's test scores on Chapter 8, by the way. So this was a previous year, or previous couple of years. But these are the test scores that were on the Chapter 8 test. And so to find the mean, you want to add up those test scores. Okay, and I wrote them out there for you. Include the 0. Okay, include the 0 and make sure the 0 is included in the number of scores that you have because it's averaged in there. Okay, it's considered an outlier, okay, but it is averaged in there. So if you take out the 0, your mean is going to be a little bit higher, okay, but not much. So add them all up and then divide by 14. Okay, the second one is a weighted mean. Okay, and this is how you find your GPA. Okay, this is the best way to show what a weighted mean is. And so how you find your weighted mean is, first of all, you have to know your weights. So we're on a 4-point scale. So that means an A is 4 points, a B is worth 3, a C is worth 2, a D is worth 1, and an F is worth 0 points. Okay, so we have our schedule, and how you find this is it's the weight times the credit hour, so how many hours is the class, and then divided by the total number of hours. The weight times the credit hour divided by total number of hours. Okay, so down here with our schedule, I went through the grades and I did their weights out beside, and that's your X value. So an A is worth 4, a C is worth 2, a D is worth 1. Okay, you can see those scores out there. And then you can see your credit hours. So you want to multiply your credit hour times your weight, add up those scores, and then divide by the total number of hours that you're taking. So here I have each score, okay? Again, grade or weight times credit hour. and then you're dividing by 16 hours. So this person with these grades made a 2.5 GPA. Okay. And basically, a weighted means you're taking a piece of categorical data and you're associating a number with it. Okay, associating a number. Okay. The next one is a median. Okay, another central tendency is a median, and that's the middle value. Okay, the middle value. So if you order your data, okay, and then you just work your way in, if you have an odd number of data, then you'll have one median value right here. It's the middle of the data, basically. Okay, the middle value. Okay, and again, you must order your values first. And one thing to note, so the example we just did had an odd number of values, so the median is just one value. If you have an even number of values, okay, that means that, so here's a case where there are 6 values. So I have 1 and 2 over here, I have 5 and 6 over here. So that means 3 and 4 are the middle. And so you have to take the average of that to find your median. So the average of 3 and 4 and get 3.5. So your median is 3.5. Your median does not have to be a value inside of your data set. Okay? Again, if it's an even number of data points, you're not going to have it. And then basically you find the average of those two. Okay, so that's your median. So to compute the median, you want to first sort the values. Okay, if they're odd, it'll be it'll be the exact middle. If it's even, you'll have to find the average of the two middle numbers. Okay, the last one is mode. Okay, and mode is the most frequently occurring value in the group. So if we go back to our chicken pot case, a 6 years old is what's happening, is the one that happens the most. Okay. And so you'll have a mode, and if no value occurs more than once, then you'll have no mode. So if no age repeats, or whatever values you're doing, if nothing repeats, then that means that you could have no mode. Now, if you had a number that occurs the same number of times, you could have 2 modes. So if there was another 7-year-old in here, then your mode would be 6 and 7. So that could also happen. So there may be more than one mode. Okay, a couple of things just to remember on how to choose the most appropriate one. Okay, mode is usually never chosen. Okay, it's usually either mean or median. If your distribution is symmetrical, okay, and you'll know that if your mean, median, and mode are all relatively the same, then or very close, then you can pick any of them. Okay. If it's not symmetrical, so if you think about if all your data points are up here in the 90s, and if it's not symmetrical, okay, or if your mean, median, and mode are not almost the same number, then the median is usually the best one to go with. Okay. The second factor to decide is if you're dealing with unordered categories, then you want to go with the mode. Okay, so this would be unordered categories. So if you're doing eye color or things like that, you want to go with the mode, what happens most. Okay, and I put this last slide on here to talk about range. And range basically is just once you put your data points in order, your range is your upper extreme minus your lower extreme. Okay, so in this case, I range from 20 to 35, so my range is 15. Okay, 35 minus 15. 35 minus 20 gives me 15. So that's how you find the range if you're working with range. Okay, so that finishes up chapter 10. Yay! Okay, so I'll also be posting the review today, and along with the review next Tuesday, we will be answering any questions that you have. And so your test will be next Thursday. And so if you are having trouble with chapter 9 or chapter 10, please reach out. Please reach out and help. So I know there was a lot of people didn't do so well on some quizzes, but again, I haven't heard from a lot of people. So I'm just assuming either you got it or you're just going to take the grade you get. So again, if you have any questions, please reach out. So have a great day.